Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Martin, for that. So now, after listening at IPv6 from a backbone perspective and from a content delivery perspective, our third speaker and final speaker for this panel, Jan Zorg from Deploy 360, will give the perspective from help desk. The ones that actually pick up the phone and listen to their complaints about what happens and what breaks and what doesn't break. So, Jan, I'll leave you to do your slides.
Thank you. And the slides are on. Thank you very much. So my name is Jan Zorg. I come from ISOC, Deploy 360, and I would like to talk to you about our latest IPv6 troubleshooting for help desk document. Thank you, Hisham, for approaching me at lunch 2 weeks ago in Warsaw at the RIPE meeting and asking me, hey, can you talk about this at the IPv6 session? So this brought me here. So first, some misconceptions that have been following this document so far. So I decided to put it on the first slide. This document is not an ISOC document. This is a community document, and it's a product of a brilliant group of experts from around the world. You will see later who these people are. I just happen to be the initiator of the document and the editor of the document, and I would like to thank ISOC here to dedicate some of my work time to run this effort. So, as you probably know, we removed one of the first speed bumps with the RIPE 554. I went around the world, talked to people, and they said it was useful that you guys put together the list of requirements that we need to ask to vendors when we are buying the ICT equipment. And then I was listening to the operators, and the next speed bump that I heard was the help desk. They said, oh, we deployed IPv6, we tested the CPEs, we did everything, and but now we are not rolling it out to our end customers, to our residential people, because we have a feeling that our help desk will just burn down in flames if we do that. So I said, well, then we need to do something about it. And, you know, sometimes IT help desks can be difficult, especially when they have no idea what to answer. If you come to the help desk with a question in the area that they have no idea what you're talking about, they usually ask you, did you turn it off and put it back on again, or some other nasty stuff. So why not putting together a document, a very generic document about our troubleshooting procedures for help desks around the world. As you see, the contributors are people from the big operators that deployed IPv6 and tackled with the help desk issues. It's Lee Howard, John Jason Berzozowski. These two guys are from the huge cable networks from US, TWC and Comcast. Then it's David Friedman from Clarinet, Jason Fessler, Tim Chown, Sander Stefan, Chris Grandeman, and my humble self. And actually this document is intended to provide a starting point for help desks and technical support staff to hand it over to the help desk people. So the hidden agenda behind this document is technical people in your organization can just print it out, add at the end the specifics for your company, and hand it over to the help desk department saying, this is what you need to know, and here are the simple instructions how to deal with the help desk issues, with the IPv6 issues at the help desk, and done, checked. We can move with our IPv6 deployment forward. So which were the tools used? So fact number one, we need to build a short and simple set of detect, explain, action scenarios. There are 8 or 9 very simple scenarios in IPv6 that help desk needs to identify and fix. Fact number 2, we actually need a simple online tool that we point the user at the other end of the phone to, and try to understand what the tool detects and troubleshoots for us. Fact number 3 is that testipv6.com is a very useful tool that does all sorts of tests on the other end. So the idea was to bring Jason Fessler. Thank you, Jason Fessler, for doing this. We brought him in the group. He's running the testipv6.com and working for Yahoo. And he created a special version of testipv6.com that is tailored for the need of help desks at ISPs. It's called isp.testvsix.com, and it does a bit more of cross-checks on the user side and reports back the findings in a very short form that is readable over the phone, and also a help desk code. Okay. So this is the screenshot of the tool. As you can see, this is the test. It's open, it's free. You can go and test the stuff. And for example, I was doing this thing from RIPE meeting, and I had a tunnel back to my Go6 lab. So this one, the code is 46T, and for the user, when user gets this result, he can just read back the code to the help desk and say, oh, my help desk code is 46T. And the person at the help desk on the other end of the phone would go in our document, find out the help desk code, and see how to tackle with the problem if there is a problem. Here, there was no problem, so nothing should be done here. But this is the example of how the tool looks like. So about the document itself, the table of content, as you can see, it's a bit about using these documents and how to help desk managers. Then it's IPv6 troubleshooting, and there are the codes. So 112 is IPv4 plus broken IPv6. This one is actually the hardest one to tackle with. And this is actually the longest one. And we will still need to work on it a lot. And then we have 4, that means the user has IPv4 only, it's 4T, IPv4 plus Teredo, and there are lots of different scenarios that are described here. And at the end, the 3 last, slow MTU and sites with failed connectivity, is just the add-on that makes the help desk understand more about the problem that is going on. Then we also have some IPv6 training for help desk recommendations. This is for help desk managers, how they should train their people there. There are some conclusions, and we included also the operator specific, that is an empty chapter where people can put in the operator specifics, print it out, handing over to help desk, done. So here is one example of the possible generic situations. So for example, if the user on the other end gets 6 to 4, that means there is 6 to 4 involved. And this is quite easy to read over the phone back to the help desk. And below that, we have the interpretation. What is 6 to 4 in very short form that was used to provide an IPv6 addresses and yada yada and blah 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 and all this stuff. You can read it up there. And then we have the action. What the person at the help desk needs to do. So have the user disable any automatic tunneling mechanisms if they are active. And then the explanation why. And also at some cases, we have some configuration examples or examples how to make people disable or fix their problem. So we try to be very brief, very short, and very to the point, so the document should not go over like 10 or 12 pages. It is in a draft 0.0 state now, so let's see how it will evolve. For example, this one is 112. It's IPv4 plus broken IPv6. This is the hardest and longest one because we also put in the table of addresses that should not or must not appear on the user's computer. If they appear there, something is really completely wrong. And we need, especially with this case, we need some help and suggestions from the community and some review from the community to make it work and get the consensus that this is actually technically correct. So document is now in a 0.0 state of a draft. The work is being done on the RIPE BCOP task force that I'm co-chairing at RIPE. And after we go through a first community consensus building cycles, we may choose to submit it to other regions, like to NANOC, and if we can make it work, the BCOP here in Africa region. And if you're interested in this, we can also do some work here. And since we posted the first draft, there was some interest from around the world. So from 13th of April, we got 2,296 downloads of the first draft. So people is actually basically reading it. And we are already receiving back some comments and some suggestions how to improve the document. And I would like to ask you, good people from Africa, to go read the document. If you have some suggestions, if you're tackled with these issues, please come back and send us your comments, and please review the document. The more reviews and the more comments we receive back, the more solid the document will be at the end. This is where the document lives and resides. I put it on Go6 website. I created a special sign just to put it somewhere really neutral. The new versions of the document will be added as they emerge. When we get enough feedback, we will do the editing cycle and put out the 0.1 version of the draft. And please read, comment. Here is my email. I have several other emails, zorz@isoc.org, or jan@go6.si, or jan@zorz.si. Send some comments. Thank you. Yeah. So you can probably go, so Hisham asked me to tell you, you can probably go and bring isp.testwithsig.com and test your network. So it is somewhere in here. So isp.testipv6.com, and let's see how things works here around. Thank you.
Could you take a minute to try to do this on your laptop now?
So floor is open now for questions.
So what you would see is that you are on a fully capable IPv6 network. If you run some tests, you would also see that you're reachable, it would test DNS, IPv4, IPv6, and so on and so forth. As you can see from the panel, we try to look at IPv6 through different perspectives, and I'll also go back to a word that was mentioned a couple of times here, which is the holistic view. When we started a couple of years back talking about, IPv6 and promoting for IPv6, we're only talking from a network perspective, how to get it on the router, how to get it up on PGP, how to do the trainings. But as we matured on working on our networks, our African networks on IPv6, we understand that there are other issues that need to be taken in account, not only just the border router side. And this is why over the time you see some of the different presentations at the IPv6 panels here at AFRINEC going into other topics like IPv6 and content, like Owen in the room here, he presented I think a couple of meetings ago IPv6 for sysadmins. Jan presented on mobile operators. We're trying to get those different perspectives. We do the IPv6 for decision makers, which is an untechnical track, to try to get that holistic view on IPv6 and how we can all move together with our networks on IPv6. On that, Kamat, I see somebody already at the mic, so I'll leave it up for questions and then I'll go back. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'm DY. As every one of you, I'm traveling a lot and attending a lot of this V6 promotion panels, including that V6 launch day, many events organized by ISOC. And V6 is around, in the beginning of design, already 20 years. And if you count from the finalizing the draft, already 15 years. And when the product is already in the market, already 10 years. And it's not done yet. And personally, I'd be pretty sure that now it's 14. Even by 2020, it will not be over. So, what's the problem? Actually, the way V6 is being promoted, I think, which is as you, one of the panelists said, or some words we take from what panelists said, okay, as far as service or end user is concerned, V4 and it's V6, it doesn't matter. All you get is protocol agnostic. And when you said, okay, I believe in V6, don't believe in net, what kind of belief is that? Is the technical belief or fact, or it's almost regional religious belief? So I don't think there is a strong case or proof that V4 is not going to work and only V6 is going to work. Or you have to make the case that at least in this, at this time point, that if you stay with V4 or you don't get this service, or this service is not working. But as an end customer or a small ISP operator, I think people are not yet convinced that if I stay with V4, I'll be killed in a day or in a year. So, so the way V6 is being introduced, educated, promoted, is still with more emotional way. I think that's where it is something to be improved. Okay, also maybe it's a kind of a culture that you might have observed with Microsoft. Okay, it's coming, version is coming, not yet. And then if anything coming, it's not backward compatible. So as you say, V4, V5, V6 are not compatible, but if anything is to be introduced, the existing infrastructure or user should be protected, which means, okay, V6 you can introduce, but you should at the same time protect V4 islands, users, or people. So V6 should be optional because V4 is not going to go away in a few years. And okay, if you say, okay, as far as services are agnostic to protocols, and if you say, I have to change my machine, if the upgrade or changeover to new machines are free, if you are going to donate, if the cost is not on me, but you guys, vendors or whoever, I'm okay. But if the cost is on me, and then I'm not convinced that I cannot do something with V4, then the logic that you would bring to people like this group is more emotional than technical. So,
could we just shorten the time?
okay,
for the
good.
comments,
So
please?
maybe the way the new paradigm is to be introduced is protect the already existing users, or especially the users with less privilege. So in the end, V6 as optional than mandatory. So that might be an opinion of or a part of engineer. So that how the V6 is going to be discussed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And let me just, as you know, speaking from an AFRINET perspective, before I allow Owen to comment, and I know Andrew wants to as well. So going back to the point about NAT, and this may be something that's, you know, something about the African continent that you may want to know about, which is for the longest time, a lot of our networks here were heavily natted because we were told that there was no IPv4 left and you need to use NATs. Today, AFRINET has IPv4 left. When we're talking about we don't want NAT, we actually want to get out of that NAT mindset here in Africa and tell people that they can actually deploy IPv4 and IPv6 with the resources without using NAT because the registry, AFRINET, has the IPv4 resources left. This is why when we go back to certain networks that have NAT and double NAT on them today, we try to educate them and tell them you can actually build it using IPv4 from AFRINET, which is the resources that the community here owns, and use that. And while you're thinking and redoing your network, and we also have presentations about this previously, about universities that restructure their entire network, get rid of NAT and deploy IPv4 and then put IPv6 on top of that. That is the mindset we have here in Africa. This is what we're trying to achieve, to try to use less NAT and more IPv4 and IPv6 resources. I'll let Owen go first, then I'll the panelists. Owen, please.
Owen DeLong, Hurricane Electric. NAT is, the previous gentleman wanted to talk about protecting the least privileged users of the network, but he didn't talk a lot about how to go about doing that. And in reality, from a technical perspective, not a religious one, but a technical one, the least privileged users of the internet are the ones that don't have any addresses at all currently. The next least privileged users of the internet are the ones that don't have globally reachable addresses and are reduced to second-class citizenship on the internet. The best way to protect both of those two groups is to move to a protocol that provides for enough addresses for everybody to have globally unique addresses and have the choice of how they use those addresses. That means IPv6. IPv4 has been on life support for 20 years. Its days are numbered. There may be a lot of numbers left, and we may be able to keep it alive and tolerate it on life support for many more years to come. I really hope we choose not to do that because it is becoming increasingly painful. The network today is less capable in terms of the diversity of applications and things that any individual can do than it was 20 years ago. Yes, we've got better bandwidth, lower latency, more fiber everywhere, more dense peering. Those things are all improvements. But in terms of addressing and in terms of the flexibility of applications and the flexibility available to developers, we have forced the building into applications of certain inherent assumptions about a NAT environment that have really, really limited our ability to improve and expand the utility of the network. It is time to move forward with a protocol that restores the end-to-end principle. It is time to move forward with a protocol that allows end-to-end addressing and allows the decision on who can talk to who to be made not by the addressing scheme, but by the policy set by the site administrators at each end of that connection. It is time, in short, to move on with IPv6 and to recognize that IPv4 is a legacy protocol and has been for many years now.
Thank you. Yeah, Andrew?
Okay, so first of all, I want to comment a little bit about the terminology used that IPv6 is something religious rather than technical. First of all, I don't believe that IPv6 is necessarily religious or always technical. It's about revenue as well, not about creating more, but about retention of revenue. But let me tell you right now, there are customers sitting behind the Liquid network. The reason that they're behind the Liquid network is because we could offer them V6, because it was mandatory in their tenders. Now, as a result of V6 and having those customers, that comes down to multi-million-dollar revenues. So to turn around and say that it is religious, sorry, I disagree. It's about revenue and keeping the revenue. Secondly, with regards to NAT, to say that NAT works just fine. Let me tell you, when you are running an abuse department and you have a massive network and you get complaint after complaint after complaint, and every complaint goes back to the same IP address, you've then got your support departments who are trying to solve these abuse complaints, trying to back translate from the NAT at a massive cost in human resource and time. That impacts your revenue and your OPEX. That is not religious. That is technical and again financial. So I suggest that before you sit and tell me that IPv6 is a religious issue, that you go back and actually run the numbers.
Can we just not turn this into a NAT war? I mean, this is an IPv6 session, so I mean, while all comment, I don't want to cut anybody short. We can take the NAT discussion offline, but I'm more interested in talking more about IPv6 here. I think both perspectives have been heard on that. So can we move to IPv6 questions?
Okay, let me, please allow me to give me my second response or comment, actually. Exactly the way the presider puts this situation is the point that I'm raising a problem of V6 promotion. Like, you know, this is the place for V6, no discussion other than V6. Or any challenge to V6. That's where you are leading people or yourself into trouble. So
Sorry, I actually disagree.
let me summarize
No,
the question in two. One.
Sorry,
then-
let me just clarify something. This is the IPv6 session where we're discussing IPv6. We actually had yesterday, during the AFNOG day, a talk about NAT, and it was discussed yesterday. So we're not leading people into any particular direction, even though there may be a collective agreement that that direction is right. However, this is the IPv6 panel, and it makes sense that we're going to discuss IPv6 here. We can be talking about other topics like DNSSEC, but that would be another panel. That's just how it is.
And I just need to add that to say that we're not accepting challenges, I believe I just stood up and did an entire presentation on the challenges of deploying V6 and the potential pitfalls of doing so.
Okay, good luck to you. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. So, yeah, go ahead, Jan.
Okay, you talked me into this. If you don't like IPv6, don't come to IPv6 sessions. If you can't stand IPv6, then don't come to IPv6 sessions. If you can't afford to deploy IPv6, then you're probably not running a network, because you should look forward and, as Andrew pointed out, retain the revenue. With no deploying IPv6, who knows? Andrew ran the numbers. I'm not a financial person, I'm a technical person. And basically, what I did not understand from your appearance on the mic, was it a question, comment, or statement?
I see people moving to the mic. Yeah, Sunday, please.
Hi. Do you need more comments or questions or statements?
Sure, Mr. Sunday. Go ahead.
All
More
right.
questions, please.
Here goes a comment. Normally when users come up to make comments regarding what techies are saying, techies should just understand that sooner or later, apart from dealing with the religion, the technicalities, they will just have to deal with the users. Whether they sound like idiots or not, they are the users. Thank you, panel, for doing a good job.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you, Sunday.
Sunday.
Yeah, next speaker.
Hi, my name is Mahmoud Abdurrahman. I'm from a company called Telesom. And thank you very much, Sunny. I think the panel comes across as a bit aggressive towards the comments. So I will say that there's no stupid question. People have the right to say their comments. So I think we should respect that. And also, I want to just remind Andrew, even in Somalia, we do run a network, even if it's been banned. So there is other networks within the country itself that are running, and we have customers also. So internet is a necessity everywhere in the world, so people still use it.
Just to say, no dispute there whatsoever. I was simply pointing out that bringing fiber across the borders has become very, very dangerous in Somalia, to the point where the security teams to bring that fiber in were costing a lot of money. So most of the networks running in Somalia from an external perspective are still on satellite, and that is something that we are desperately trying to change, hence the fiber crossing the border from the Garissa side. It was no disrespect meant to Somalia at all. It was simply highlighting that there are challenges getting fiber, and hence challenges getting V6 because of the satellite connectivity, which largely does not support V6.
Yes, I wanted just to mention there fiber has been deployed in Mogadishu at the moment. There's a gentleman from Dalcom who is actually running the network there. And also there's a fiber link, terrestrial fiber link from Djibouti to Hargeisa. So there is a fiber network in Somalia itself. My question was from an ISP point of view, if an ISP deploys IP version 6, what does this mean to the end user, to the end users?
It's a very simple and great question, actually. And there are two responses to that. One is if the ISP deploys IPv6, there should be no realization, no effect on the end user. In fact, the end user has contracted, if we want to use that word, with their service provider for access to the internet. And normally there's a full stop after that word, the internet. And therefore, the mere fact that as we have progressed technically and in other areas as well, policy-wise and the like, services-wise, human nature's use of online services, whether it be for education or for finance or for entertainment or for whatever, they expect access to the internet. So if an ISP successfully deploys V6 out to the end user, then the result should be that the end user just continues to use the internet, and they should not see anything different. The loss of revenue comment that was mentioned earlier and has been mentioned before is sort of the key point, is you're retaining the user, you're keeping the user connected to the internet, and the mere fact that V6 is just one more component of that, a vital component, but a component none the same, should be near immaterial to the mass populace of end users. So that's sort of the first part of the answer. The second part of the answer is to invert your question. What if the ISP doesn't deploy V6? And I will simply state that the reason why we have had this many panels and have talked about V6 for so long is not an issue of its technical creation 14, 15 years ago. It's because, without using the word religion in any way, that we believe that providing access to the internet will inevitably include the ability to access V6 as well as V4. Because in the same way that we have improved quite transparently to the end user certain aspects of our communication protocols. When we open a laptop, maybe with a dial-up modem 15 years ago or earlier, or depending upon where you were, and you had access to what we considered then to be the internet, versus today, whether it be a smartphone or a laptop and a Wi-Fi and thousands of miles from home, and we open up and we use the internet. The actual underlying protocols have dramatically changed over the years and have been delivered to end users quite successfully. Security for banking and e-commerce, Wi-Fi protocols that work, the ability to connect over great distances at acceptable speeds to continue doing work while traveling. All of these aspects are different vectors in the big picture of we're providing end users access to the internet. And I'd hate to sit up on a V6 panel and minimize V6, but I'll simply state it's just one more thing in that long path. And so your question your question is vital, yet in fact actually should be transparent. If we do our job right, and I mean we as in the collective we, us in the room and many more in other places.
I would just like to add to that.
And sorry.
Oh yeah. Oh sorry. Go.
To add what Martin said, if we do our job right, the users should not even notice anything changed when we add the IPv6 to their connectivity. If they notice and if they start calling the help desk, then we didn't do everything correctly. There will be cases, but for example, it was reported by the large operators like Comcast with 19 million users, and TWC, and also in Romania, now in Belgium, Telenet deployed IPv6 for everyone without even knowing them, without even letting them know that they got V6 on their home connectivity. And the change in help desk calls was 0. And this is how it is supposed to be. People should not even know they're communicating over the new protocol. So please consider this way of doing V6 and not pumping the balloon up to the sky and scaring out everyone. Just deploy V6, do it in the right way, and you'll be good.
Thank you. So Mark, please come on, and please, it will be the last question because we are running out of time. Okay, thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Mark Elkins. I'm an ISP, and I also run IPv6. I'm wondering what the fuss is about. Martin, I'm very curious to hear, simply by putting thousands of websites now also on V6 as well as V4, apart from the people that record where people come from, in other words, the field for storing an IP address might be a little bit short on the website's database. Has there been any other problems at all with running V6 rather than V4?
No, you've actually hit the number one issue for a very small number of websites. For most people that operate web content, even if they're doing fairly heavy recording, logging of IP addresses for either analytics, for advertising, for some reason or other, if they're using fairly up-to-date software, then most of those packages have already been updated, obviously to handle a V6 address as well as a V4, especially if you're using some of the online services, Google Analytics or the like comes to mind. There are the occasional site more in the enterprise space where we see slightly older software, but software that is not capable of doing updates, where they are limited in their database size. They've hard-coded the concept of 4 octets for an address, and they will be thwarted. And there's actually an interesting subtlety to this. After a while, people realize that they don't quite remember why they were recording the IP address in the first place. There's actually a lot of other analytics going on which has already interpreted the user in some way or other. And so in some cases, people take this as an advantage to actually sort of clean up that aspect, or that remaining aspect of legacy V4. Others simply say, okay, it's time to do a database update, and we'll now provide space for 128 bits if necessary. This is minor compared to, and it wasn't thousands of websites, it was hundreds of thousands to millions of websites, the majority of which truly could just operate as is. So the answer is yes, you've hit the one issue, but it truly is, for a majority of users, a minor issue.
Okay, thank you. So at the end of the session, I would like to thank you all. And I would like to repeat that we respect all point of views, but this session is not a debate between IB version 4 and IB version 6. It's just we can consider it as a call for IPv6 for future. So at the end, I would like to give applause for our distinguished presenter and for you as well. Thank you. I think it's time for lunch now. Thank you all. Thank you.